Mike, have you recovered from the USC game last night?
Yes, I have. I kind of had a feeling it was going to turn out that way before it even started, so it wasn't that much of a shock to the system, basically.
All right, let's talk some high school hoops, more important matters, obviously, to discuss. And, the game's a week old, or almost a week old at this point, but we certainly haven't talked to you since. It was that big matchup last Saturday night, right before Christmas Eve, Atlantic City at home against St. Augustine. And the Vikings come out with that win, and they get the monkey off of their back, if you will. It had been a long drought against St. Augustine, I believe 6 losses in a row, and the Hermits really hadn't lost to any Cape Atlantic League opponent in, about 50-some matchups. So, what impressed you so much about Atlantic City last night? I know last week, I should say. I know you've seen them a number of times so far this year, and it looks like one of the more complete teams that Gene Allen has had, at least in recent years there at AC.
Yeah, I mean, they bounced back. It's strange to say bounce back, but like you mentioned, they hadn't lost 6 in a row to St. Augustine. St. Augustine had won 58 in a row against Cape Atlantic League teams. And I kind of look at that game last week as kind of like an appetizer for the season. It's unusual for two teams, two perennial powers to meet so early in the season, really on the, the second weekend of the season. To me, Atlantic City, you look at the three seniors, Ray Bethea Jr., Nazim Derry, and Flash Morgan. Those kids kind of rose to prominence as sophomores. They kind of helped Atlantic City win a South Jersey title and get to a state final as sophomores. And everybody wondered, hey, are they going to be the next great sort of Atlantic City class? Last year, a lot of expectations. They won 21 games, finished 21-7, but a bit of a disappointment. They lost to St. Augustine in the CAL final. They lost in the South Jersey Group 4 quarterfinals. They've come back this season. They're bigger, stronger, and faster, just physically better than they were last year. And so far, they're off to a great start. They're 3-0, though they haven't played over Christmas at all, which is kind of unusual. And they return to action this week, coming up with some tough games. Vineland, I believe, on Tuesday, Wildwood Catholic on Friday, and then Camden Catholic at the new Siegel Classic at Holy Spirit on Sunday. So, we'll find out even more about Atlantic City this week coming up.
And then the other side of that coin, St. Augustine, I mean, it's hard to stay at the top forever, obviously, impossible, really. But, that's a really talented Hermits team, maybe a little bit younger. But what were some of your takeaways from the way the Hermits performed in that matchup against AC? They certainly didn't make it easy for Atlantic City that night, sort of the Vikings just kind of wearing them down the stretch.
No, absolutely. And when you look at St. Augustine, you hit it right on the head. How are you going to be able to stay at that level of excellence, every year? 58 in a row, 3 straight Cape Atlantic League titles, 2 straight South Jersey championships. But St. Augustine doesn't rebuild like your average school. They don't even reload like your average school. So a lot of talented players. Marlon Hargis, as a senior, off to a great start this season. So my impression of St. Augustine that night was they had some talented players who maybe in Game 3 of this season weren't ready for a contest like that against Atlantic City. But these schools meet on January 30th, and when they meet again on January 30th, they will be ready for a game like that against Atlantic City. So it'll be interesting to see the rematch there. And St. Augustine out in California right now in San Diego, which I bet, as I look out my window today and feel the wind coming in through the window, I bet we wish we all were in San Diego. The Hermits have won 2 games out there, and they'll play for the championship of the Torrey Classic tonight against another team from California. So the St. Augustine's going to be just fine, and they're going to be even better when these teams have their rematch in late January.
We've talked about St. Augustine and Atlantic City at the top of the Cape Atlantic League for so long. Those teams have matched up in the last couple championship games, but it seems like, at least to me this year, there's sort of a third team knocking at the door, ready to break through, ready to get on that level as those two teams, and that's Wildwood Catholic, undefeated so far this year. Caleb Fields, Division I recruit, a really talented supporting cast around him, and the Crusaders getting set for a huge matchup tonight to basically close down the Boardwalk Basketball Classic against Father Judge. Is Wildwood Catholic a team that obviously is going to make some noise in the Cal tournament, but is maybe positioned to knock off one of those other two for one of those prime spots, possibly in a Cal final?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, they've got big games coming up in January against both Atlantic City and St. Augustine. We mentioned the Atlantic City game is this Friday. They play St. Augustine on Martin Luther King Day that Monday. To me, Wildwood Catholic has been a team that's kind of searched for defensive consistency over the years, and they haven't always had it, but they have had it this season. I like the makeup of their team. You mentioned Caleb Fields, going to Bowling Green, Division I player. He's their main guy. His brother, Charles Fields, tremendous athlete, does the little stuff that is needed to win. Mike Capizzoli, kind of a 6'3" guy, physical player, bangs down low, rebounds. And then they have Taj Feet, the 6'5" sophomore, very talented player. He's going to be one of the top players in South Jersey soon. And Jaleel White, another talented sophomore coming off the bench, or starting for them. So it's almost like they have a perfect mix of players. They have the veteran in Caleb Fields. Everybody knows Caleb Fields is their guy. They have other guys who fulfill their roles well, and then they have some youngsters who are, who can carry a team if need be. So I like the makeup of Wildwood Catholic's team, and I think they're going to challenge, Atlantic City and St. Augustine this season.
Mike McGarry, press of Atlantic City, our guest right now on the South Jersey Sports Report, talking some South Jersey high school hoops, specifically Cape Atlantic League. And Mike, we hit really the top three teams out of the gate here, Atlantic City, St. Augustine, and also Wildwood Catholic. But a number of other teams with impressive starts this year and looking like they have a lot of firepower this season. I know you've recently written about Pleasantville, the Greyhounds off to a good start and possibly a resurgence of that program. And then another team that jumps out to me, St. Joe out of Hamilton. I mean, a lot of scoring on that team, and the Wildcats are off to a hot start. What about maybe those two teams and maybe a couple others that I didn't mention have impressed you so far in this young South Jersey and specifically Cape Atlantic League basketball season?
Yeah, we'll take the two you mentioned right off the top first. I mean, Pleasantville 4-1, big win over Holy Spirit yesterday, big win over Egg Harbor Township last week. And again, we talk about the season being 2 weeks old, but those are two wins that Pleasantville can hang on its resume to get into that Cape Atlantic League tournament. I mean, you start building your resume for that tournament, on the opening night. Pleasantville with Divine Adams at the guard position, Samir Jones, the transfer from mainland coming over, and Jacob Valios, 6'5" junior. That really gives them three guys who can score the ball. They have a lot of depth, so I really like that Pleasantville team, to really play well. And so far, they're 4-1 with the only loss to Lenape, one of the top teams in South Jersey. And the other team you mentioned, before I went on the radio here, I got a text from Paul Rodeo, the St. Joe coach, not the St. Augustine guy, and he said, St. Joe rallied from a 14-point deficit, came back in the fourth quarter late last night to beat Immaculata, win that Christmas tournament up there. They're 5-0. They've got one of the dynamic players in South Jersey in guard Marcellus Ross, averaged 35 points up at Immaculata in those two wins. He's 48 away from 1,000. I think they've scored, I don't know exactly how many points they scored last night to win that game, but they've hit over 80 in I think 3 of their 4 wins before their win last night. So there's a lot of firepower there, and that's a very good division. Pleasantville, St. Joe, Wildwood Catholic, and don't forget about Middle Township with Jalen Freeman. I think they're 3-2. So that's a great division, that CAL United division. Another team I think to keep your eye on, I'll give you one, Lower Cape May with Pat Holden, off to a great start. I believe they won a bracket down at the Boardwalk Basketball Classic this year. They're in that middle division, the national division there, and they've got a good freshman. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, but the kid can shoot. And, so Lower Cape May is another team to keep an eye on.
We broke down a little bit of the Siegel Classic schedule. Of course, this tournament returning next weekend at Holy Spirit, and not to date you, Mike, but I guess you are in that age group old enough to remember when this was really the prominent event before it sort of went on that long, 17-year hiatus. But we broke down some of the schedule, and you go across the board here next weekend at the Siegel Classic. You got St. Augustine taking on Middle Township, which is a good local matchup on Friday night. But you look at some of the other matchups across the weekend, especially on the boys' side. I mean, Timber Creek Linden on Saturday, and Winslow taking on the Patrick School, Camden in action, Atlantic City in action. How much are you looking forward to this event? Obviously, it might take some time to sort of build it back up into what it once was, but just to see that name, Siegel Classic, back in South Jersey, man, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting, and the Siegel. I wasn't around for the Siegel. I started right, a couple years after it ended, and I always heard about it, heard about the great matchups, and it was really kind of the forerunner of the many showcase events that you kind of see almost every weekend now. I think it's great. I think it comes at a great time of the year. First weekend in January, teams have 5, 6, 7 games under their belt, so they're kind of hitting their stride. And if you're a basketball fan, like you said, you want to see Linden, the defending state Group 4 champions, you can go to Holy Spirit and see them. You want to see the Patrick School, which won the TOC last year, you can go to Holy Spirit and see them. And I think some local teams really testing themselves against good competition. The mainland girls will be playing Gloucester Catholic, a perennial power. That's a game I'm kind of interested in. Wildwood Catholic boys against Lenape. That's another good game. And Atlantic City Camden Catholic, a great game on Sunday. And a Pleasantville Holy Spirit boys rematch on Sunday night. So really just should be a tremendous weekend of basketball at Holy Spirit. And you got a feeling with the way Johnny Rodeo, the nephew, the uncle of the St. Joe coach, the brother of the St. Augustine coach, kind of promotes the event, and I know he has big plans for it. So, I only see that event getting better and bigger as time goes on, and that really is kind of a magic name in South Jersey basketball. So it's great to see that sort of back on the forefront. And we'll have a story out in the Press of Atlantic City this week, kind of looking at the history of the event and what it once meant to South Jersey. So it's kind of great to get an event like that back.
Should be a big weekend for high school basketball in South Jersey at the Siegel Classic. Should be a big year, 2018, for high school basketball in South Jersey as well. Mike McGarry, Press of Atlantic City, thanks for taking the time, Mike. Happy New Year, and I'm sure we'll see you on the court very soon in 2018.
Absolutely. Thanks. Same to you, and thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it again. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City.